Hello everyone, Jayman here, and welcome to the pilot episode of Weird Fetishes, the show that nobody asked for and has probably already been done before. But Jayman, haven't you already got several video series to work on, like reactors like Bear? Look, I turned 21 recently. I'm going through a very strange time in my life, as will be evident by the end of this video. Anyway, in this episode of Weird Fetishes, we will be going over the early history and events of furries.
All right, now I'm going to stop you right there. Because you are judging. You need to allow me to explain myself.
In the modern day of 2019, furries have become very commonplace. I doubt many of you will require much explanation as to their culture. Furries have been treated very similarly to many other bizarre fetish groups over the years. Shunned by the masses, confined to convention centers for gatherings and cultural expression, they are treated like animals. No pun intended. But furries seem to get the worst rep of them all. The world just can't seem to accept them. But where did this animosity towards these bizarre individuals come from? Well, to find that out, it requires us to go back in time to the very first gamer-furry war. In the late 1920s, the fallout from the Great Gamer War was still taking effect. One of the many outcomes was the furry party gaining traction in Germany. While they weren't the only ones affected by this, they were the main cause of many events to follow. The elected leader of the furry party, Hitler, was a well-known furry. Was a well-known furry. How? He was a fan of Disney, and everyone knows that Disney encourages furries. The party had convinced the populace to embrace radical furryism. To do this, they began blaming many of the country's problems on gamers, utilizing the scars left from the Great Gamer War to their advantage. The populace had rallied behind the furry party, placing them into power, turning them into the Third Reich. I fucking wrote this. Turning them into the Third Reich and beginning the mass subjugation of all gamers in Germany.
You have to register as a foreign citizen in Germany. Do they make you carry papers around and wear a fucking star on your lapel? What the fuck, Germany?
I have to carry my passport.
You don't
I have to carry
Where are your papers? Get on the train!
I'm gonna move on now before I offend too many people. Sorry.
Where are your papers?
The Third Reich invaded its neighbouring countries with plans to continue the subjugation of gamers across the land. Of course, England would not stand for the oppression of the Third Reich, led by the Queen, who travelled back in time to beat Hitler twice. They gathered the English gamer army and declared war on the German furry regime. Oh, and so did France, I guess. The Third Reich would not stand for this, and so the furries armed themselves. They went rabid, so to say. The world had finally seen the madness of radical furryism. Many gamers from around the world joined the efforts to fight the Third Reich. However, some saw the furries as the victims in this war. Italy, and their population of dedicated Nintendo fans, just so happened to have an affinity to furries. This led to both countries signing the Fur Affinity. Fur Affinity Pact of 1940. The Fur Affinity powers invaded France, devastating the country and their gamer population. Within the first year of the war, the French leadership surrenders occupation of France to the Third Reich. This greatly angered the Queen, as she immediately used her ultra powers of tea and monarchy to halt the invasion of Great Britain. At this point, the suicidal maniacs of Japan and their horde of Naruto runners decided to join Fur Affinity. Furry Hitler, realizing he wasn't getting into Great Britain due to the Queen's raw power and divine abilities, decided to invade Russia in mid-1941 with Operation Communism is bad, okay? Yes, I'm skipping the North African conflict. Why? Because this is a furry video, and no furries took part in that conflict, duh. History amateurs, I swear. The Adidas Union were taken by surprise by the sudden invasion. They rallied their gargantuan gamer population to rapidly form a defensive line to defend their motherland. The gamers of Russia weren't that good, and their line was rapidly pushed back by the furry army with no major victories. We will return to this critical conflict later on. The Americans had remained largely uninvolved for the majority of the conflict up until now. The Naruto runners of Japan decided to make a preemptive strike against Pearl Harbor, running across the ocean directly to Hawaii and weakening the US Navy drastically. The two parties then declared war on each other. We're going to skip ahead to save time. In short, American bodybuilders joined the Queen's alliance. Although they did refuse to acknowledge her sovereignty over all the world, the Queen needed cannon fodder to retake France, so she just went along with it. With the Adidas Union being on the brink of defeat against the furry menace, they called upon the heavens to send them a champion to turn the tides. The gods answered their cries for aid, sending them one of their greatest champions, Rainbow Stalin. At the Battle of Stalingrad, he rallied his most powerful gamers and managed to force the Third Reich and its allies to retreat. Oh fuck, this is taking too long. Okay, skip that. Not important. Italy surrenders or something. Stuff in Japan or whatever. Here we go. The Queen, the God King of America, Piedisliker, and Rainbow Stalin have a meeting to discuss a final assault against the Furfinity powers. With the Nintendo fans of Italy going back to games, it left only a daring effort to push the furries back to the capital of Berlin. Rainbow Stalin proposed a pincer invasion. American bodybuilders would, with the aid of British naval gamers, land along the border of France and claim a port, while Stalin would enact a rush tactic and send his entire gamer army directly towards Berlin. This operation would be named Rush B. The Queen's alliance moved on with their plans to defeat Furfinity. Once the American bodybuilders claimed a port, they proceeded towards the French capital in hopes of liberating it. Little did they know that a group of elite French gamers had already formed a resistance against the furry occupation, led by a man known only as Max. By the time the American bodybuilders and British gamers had arrived, the city of Paris was all but liberated. The general in charge of the occupation, Sonic.exe, had retreated, leaving Max unsatisfied. He joined the marching army and led his legion into Germany in pursuit of justice and victory. The Third Reich soon fell, as they saw only defeat on all fronts. Operation Rush B working concerningly well, the Adidas Union took Berlin and attempted to capture Furry Hitler. However, before they could reach him, he had sent Sonic.exe forward in time to an undisclosed location in Canada to eventually bring about the second reign of the Third Reich. Then he killed himself. No cheap Hitler escapes joke in this story. And so the remaining furries surrendered unconditionally. The American bodybuilders were slightly unsatisfied by this and bombed Japan for fun. With no reason to remain, Rainbow Stalin returned to the heavens and left the Adidas Union in tatters, and its gaming community largely quelled. Max found and struck a deal with the Queen, that she would take him back to the future so he could hunt down and destroy the last remnants of the Third Reich like a true G. They locked arms and returned to the present day. Not all furries were part of the Third Reich, of course, but that didn't change the world's opinion of them from dropping massively after the war. So now you know the 100% real and factual truth of the first Gamer Furry War. Did I leave anything out? Let me know in the comments below. You know, I'm getting a little tired of presenting my face for these things, and I don't want it to just be a black screen. So how about we spruce things up a bit with a new avatar? I think turning 21 has really affected me. I'd like to introduce everyone to 1178chan. To anyone who follows me on Twitter, you already know what this is, but for the rest of you, This is a gender-bent cat-girl version of me. At least that was the description used when requesting her. I'll get more into this in a minute, but I'd like to finish the main topic of the video first. At this point in the video, I'll be giving my honest yet still mildly comedic thoughts about furries. Despite the memes, I don't think there's anything wrong with expressing your passions and creativity. I use a common joke as the basis for this video's history segment, but I don't mean any ill will by replacing the Nazis with furries. Ironically, I do have ideas for a follow-up episode with furries, but we'll see how this one goes down first. Again, being a furry is fine. Whether it be due to sexual reasons, cultural entertainment, or for fun, it's fine. Do what makes you happy. I can't really judge you given my own history and current avatar. All this being said, I find it baffling that furries and bestiality in general is given so much controversy when I've seen some truly terrifying shit from other fetish communities, one of which I will be touching on in the next episode. Speaking of, if you have a specific fetish that you'd like me to create a satirical episode on, do let me know. I plan on doing 4 episodes per season for this new series, and I only have the first 2 planned with topics. That's not to say I don't have fetishes in mind that I can talk about, just none that would be good for a first season in my opinion. If you come up with anything, let me know in the comments or on Twitter. I'm thinking about opening a Discord server at some point, so if that happens, you can also go there. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about 1178chan. I'd like to start by thanking Puddin on Twitter for making it for me. She messaged me almost instantly after the request was put out, and was really helpful considering I've never requested or commissioned an art piece before. Her art is amazing, and given the short time it took her to put 1178chan together in this tier of quality is really admirable. I would definitely recommend checking out her art on Twitter. I personally get a very wholesome and satisfying vibe from her hand-drawn art styles. But then again, I have very minimal artistic vision, so that might not be the intended vibe. Either way, I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you very much again for your help. I do hope this first use of the character was not too disappointing to your expectations. Next, I'd like to thank Piedisliker for getting my request out there. I honestly had just gotten home from work with the idea fresh in my mind, and decided to put the request out there, not really expecting that much. Piedisliker has always been very supportive of my online presence, and I don't think I can ever thank him enough for that. I'm also shocked the request itself wasn't comically joked about by anyone, especially considering some people I know. Lastly, after the request was put out, I began to panic when so much started happening at once. While Puddin got to me first, I was recommended to another at the same time. I did check out their art, and while I didn't end up commissioning them, I would feel bad if I didn't at least shout them out in some way. Nitsua Sensei, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, does a fantastic and eye-catching art style that is definitely worth checking out if you want to see something visually fabulous. Funnily enough, I think this particular artist may relate to the video topic, as they have a link to Fur Affinity in their bio. That might be a good idea actually. Maybe at the end of each episode I'll shout out an artist I enjoy that does or has done art relating in some way to the video topic. There is only one episode in mind that will be an exception to this idea though. So thanks for watching this far. I really hope you enjoyed the video. In regards to 1178chan, I've decided to keep her as my avatar permanently, if only to maintain a less plain and boring online persona. Anyway, I won't drag the video on anymore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.